Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening for wherever you are joining this event today. My name is Titi Ratip Samritu. I will serve as your moderator for today. And welcome everyone from both the Zoom webinar and also from the Facebook Live for the event of International Day for Universal Access to Information, which is organized by UNESCO and Faculty of Communication Arts, Chulalongkorn University. Very warm welcome for everyone. And I think we now have some audience both in the Zoom and in the Facebook Live. Today's event is a part of the global celebrations of International Day for Universal Access to Information 2020. And the theme for the year is Artificial Intelligence, e-governance, and access to information. Sorry for some technical errors previously. So the theme of the year is artificial intelligence, e-governance, and access to information. So as you have seen on our agenda, that our event will be about the access to information, open data, and also the role of technology that will play in this issue. And also, we have this live stream on UNESCO Bangkok Facebook page, which you are more than welcome to share. It's for your friends, your colleagues who might be interested in our issue today. For participants in Zoom, you have the language option, the interpretation with the globe mark at the bottom of Zoom. If you have any problem, you can ask our staff. You can send a chat message to our staff directly about any technical issues that you have during our event. Okay, so our today's sessions, we will have two main sections. The first one will be on showcase, which we will learn from experiences from 3 different countries about the access to information. And then after that, we will have a panel discussion in Thai language, of course, with the translation. But the issue will be focusing on the role of technology in the right to information or open data context. But before we start our 2 exciting sessions, let us have some opening remarks from our 3 distinguished guests. First of all, I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Remco van Wijkaarten, the Ambassador of the Netherlands to Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, to give an opening remark. His Excellency, please.
Thank you, and thank you for your introduction and your opening. It's a big honor for me to welcome you all to this online event on the International Day for Universal Access to Information, a very important subject. And I consider it a great privilege to provide a few opening remarks to this event that will focus on artificial intelligence, e-governance, and access to information in Thailand and the Mekong region. I think it's fair to say that perhaps more than ever, it is important that in a free, democratic, and pluriform society, people, citizens have free access to information. Information and knowledge make people more self-reliant, conscious of the world and all that it has to offer, and empower citizens and civil society while checking and balancing the power of their governments. Information supports societies in their struggles for emancipation. But as we all know, information can also simply make life easier. As we are assembled here today in this virtual surrounding, artificial intelligence and e-governance indeed play important roles in the digital world that we are all part of. Whether I would like to access my bank accounts, change my personal details with the city I live in, or arrange a parking permit for my car, we can arrange all these things with our smartphones while sitting on our sofas and watching our favorite Netflix series. So a lot of benefits, obviously. However, in spite of empowering citizens in their struggle for emancipation or simply make our lives easier, the AI-driven digital transformation also raises serious questions about fundamental rights and the ethical use of AI and e-governance. And some of these questions will be addressed today. The Kingdom of the Netherlands is a keen supporter of universal access to information, but at the same time, we encourage a critical and open conversation on the possible downsides of that principle. Therefore, we are indeed a proud supporter of this event and a supporter of the work UNESCO does in this regard. So ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to UNESCO for organizing this event and for providing the opportunity to say a few words before you kick off. So I wish you all a very fruitful, inspiring, and thought-provoking event. Thank you and enjoy your session.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. So our next opening remark will be from our co-host, the Faculty of Communication Arts, Chulalongkorn University. So we have the representative Assistant Professor Dr. Sukanya Somphaiboon, the Deputy Dean from the faculty, to give some opening remark before we start the day.
ขอบคุณค่ะสวัสดีค่ะสำหรับทุกท่านนะคะที่ร่วมงาน International Day for Universal Access to Information 2022 Artificial Intelligence, E-Governance and Access to Information in Thailand and the Mekong region นะคะในวาระที่ทั่วโลกกำลังเฉลิมฉลอง International Day for Universal Access to Information ถือเป็นเกียรติกับคณะนิเทศศาสตร์จุฬาลงกรณ์มหาวิทยาลัยมากค่ะที่ได้เป็นส่วนหนึ่งในการขับเคลื่อนการเข้าถึงข้อมูลข่าวสารได้อย่างเสรีและเป็นธรรมของภาคประชาชนนะคะเราตระหนักเสมอค่ะว่าความโปร่งใสตรวจสอบได้ของข้อมูลของภาครัฐและการเข้าถึงข้อมูลที่จำเป็นของประชาชนจะนำมาซึ่งสังคมที่อุดมปัญญาของประชาชนดังนั้นในนามตัวแทนคณบดีคณะนิเทศศาสตร์นะคะดิฉันขอเปิดงานในวันนี้อย่างเป็นทางการแล้วก็ขอให้การประชุมในวันนี้สร้างการตระหนักรู้ในเรื่องข้อมูลข่าวสาร Open Data รวมถึงการคำนึงถึงสิทธิในการรับรู้ข้อมูลข่าวสารของประชาชนอย่างทั่วหน้านะคะให้กับผู้ที่เกี่ยวข้องและผู้ชมทุกท่านในสังคมไทยแล้วก็ขอให้งานประสบความสำเร็จได้องค์ความรู้ที่เป็นประโยชน์กับทุกคนที่เข้าร่วมแล้วก็ประชาชนทุกคนต่อไปค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะ Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sukanya. ขอบคุณมากนะคะ Okay, we now have our last opening remark from Mr. Shigeru Aoyaki, the director of UNESCO Bangkok. Of course, this is not this event doesn't only happen in this region. We also have the similar event in other part of the world as well. So, Mr. Shigeru, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our distinguished panelists and guests. I would like to start by thanking His Excellency Ambassador Lemuko von Wen-Harden for his opening remarks and for his government's steadfast and vital support to freedom of expression, press freedom, and universal access to information, including through partnerships with UNESCO around the world. I also wish to warmly welcome and thank the Faculty of Communication Arts of Chulalongkorn University, which has been doing excellent work to boost digital literacy skills for Thai citizens and help strengthen outline online fact-checking in Thailand. Welcome, dear colleagues and friends, to this year's commemoration of the International Day for Universal Access to Information. You may be aware that this International Day is a relatively new one within the United Nations system, as it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly only several years ago in 2019, having first been endorsed by UNESCO's 193 member states in 2015. Thanks to colleagues like you, and thanks to many others throughout the world, this International Day has been growing steadily all over the globe as a timely reminder of the critical importance of universal access to information as a human right, as well as an indispensable tool for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Indeed, the human right of public access to information is more important than ever. providing accurate information to the public has been a policy imperative for saving lives and livelihoods during the COVID-19 pandemic. And providing efficient access to accurate information is now widely accepted as a practical and life-saving necessity. The adoption in many places in the world of open access policies in science has also played an important role in universal data sharing. Most recently, the pandemic has led to the largest annual total circulation of scholarly research articles in history, many of which have circulated for review at no cost to others, in part as an act of global solidarity. As you may know, the first DNA gene sequencing of the novel coronavirus was published on an open access data repository, which enabled researchers worldwide to rapidly develop diagnostics and eventual therapies and vaccines. In November last year, UNESCO General Conference unanimously adopted the first global recommendation on open science. This new normative framework will be used by UNESCO member states to facilitate open access and open data policies. Over the coming years, implementation of open science policies can facilitate the sharing and the development of scientific and medical knowledge around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic also has been accompanied by a parallel pandemic of disinformation. Health disinformation can be more toxic and deadly than disinformation about other subjects. It can be a matter of life and death for millions during a pandemic. Access to quality information makes our human right to freedom of expression meaningful to maintaining peaceful and informed societies, and disinformation works against that right. UNESCO and our partners have worked to protect and strengthen these human rights in 4 primary areas. 1, countering the contamination of the civic realm with disinformation. 2, supporting independent quality journalism. 3, empowering people through media and information literacy. And lastly, assisting member states in meeting international standards on freedom of expression. These UNESCO programs are designed to interface with governments, the media, the judiciary, security forces, and other sectors involved in maintaining human rights, freedom of expression, and access to public information and journalism. Artificial intelligence, or AI, may offer governments the best chance to accelerate the UN's Sustainable Development Goals by assessing larger data sets for evidence-based modeling and forecasts. Consequently, understanding the ethical and legal implications of the development and the use of AI has become a key part of UNESCO's support to member states. Last November, UNESCO member states also adopted the first international normative instrument on the ethics of AI, and just this month, UNESCO launched at the ITU UNESCO Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development a new toolkit for civil services on AI capacity building. It addresses the 3 competency areas. 1, digital planning and design. 2, data use and governance. And lastly, digital management and execution. Dear participants, the role of the UNESCO Secretariat in Bangkok will be to ensure that these new international normative instruments and tools related to universal access to information can be effectively mainstreamed among multi-stakeholder partners at regional, national, and local levels. I thus look forward to learning about and following up on the outcomes of today's discussions. Once again, I thank our distinguished panelists, speakers, and guests, and extend, on behalf of UNESCO, a warm thanks to everyone for joining us for this important public event. I wish everyone informative and fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chieru. And then now we have heard about the importance principles of the right to information and other related issues from our first three speakers in the opening remark. Next, we will have a keynote on the topic of World Trends Report on access to information implementation and lesson learned. I would like to invite Mr. Joe Hironaka, Advisor of Communication and Information Unit from UNESCO Bangkok, to give us more details about the latest trend. Please, Mr. Joe.
Okay, thank you, dear colleagues, for joining us on this day. This day commemorates and reminds us as a starting point that access to information is an integral part of human rights. Article 19 of the ICCPR and the same Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights protects the right to seek, to receive, and to impart information of all kinds. And it obliges state parties, 167 states in the case of the ICCPR and 192 for the Universal Declaration, to ensure the right of access to information for everyone, every person, without a distinction of any kind. Back in 1990, in other words, not so long ago, we had just 14 countries that had adopted legislation addressing the right to information. 14. Thailand holds the distinction of being the first ASEAN member country to enact a framework that addresses the right of access to information. And this was through the Official Information Act of 1997. Today, more than 135 countries and territories have adopted right to information legislation. So what might be going on? I should add that agreements in the form of regional conventions have been developed quite recently, and these can provide guidance in the field of access to information. So, for example, the Council of Europe Convention on Access to Official Documents, which entered into force in December 2020, may be described as the first binding international legal instrument which recognizes the right of access to official public documents held by public authorities. The African Union also adopted a model law on access to information for Africa. And other regional treaties, including in Latin America and the Caribbean, regulate the right to access of information on specific topics, such as on the environment. And so universal international standards have been reflected in legislation in approximately 2/3 of UN member states just over the past recent decades. And these decades of legislative action also saw the growth of internet access, which has reached and then recently exceeded half of the world's population at the start of this decade. The internet itself provides the big data sets which fed the growth of artificial intelligence, and timed along with innovations in coding and advances in computational power, this access to data sets allowed AI to emerge as a tool for sustainable development achievement and evidence-based e-governance. This month, in fact, 10 days ago in New York, as my director, Shigeru Aoyagi, just mentioned, UNESCO's Director General and Nokia's CEO co-launched a new competency framework on artificial intelligence for civil service officials. And this report is based on the premise that AI should give civil servants the best chance of developing effective policies to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And whether it's line ministries responsible for education, health, economic and social services, and so on. But in order to adopt AI to sustainable development and effective e-governance goals, civil services at all levels will need core competencies addressed in this report. So to wit, for example, on assessing the ethical and legal implications of the collection, the organization and use of AI technologies, on ensuring that data used to train AI systems will be secure and protected from tampering, on being aware of the privacy implications of AI systems during and also after development, and on sharing high-value open data sets with external organizations to also use in AI development, as well as using published open data in AI systems to avoid recollection of data, and to adhere to or to iterate on all relevant legal frameworks for data protection, for privacy, as well as human rights frameworks, including access to information. So we will soon share a link to that report in the chat. And actually, I guess your expectations are for me to address some findings brought from UNESCO's monitoring and reporting on access to information, known as Sustainable Development Goal Indicator 16.10.2. And for those of you who are not overly habituated with UN jargon, that's of course the reporting indicators 10.2 of the 16th SDG. SDG 16 broadly addresses peace, yeah? But it also addresses building, quote, effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Effective, accountable, and inclusive. And indicator 10.2 assures reporting and monitoring of both the number of countries that adopt and implement constitutional, statutory, and/or policy guarantees for public access to information. And because of this reporting and monitoring component, SDG 16.10.2 serves as an incentive for countries to improve their legal and regulatory frameworks and to improve their implementation and enforcement of access to information, legal and regulatory frameworks. So you can see a correlation, yeah, between the large number of countries that have recently adopted access to information laws and the very existence of SDG 16. So if nothing else, perhaps the utility of SDGs in promoting human rights-based legislation should feel a bit more clear through this example, in case you may be skeptical. And of course, the 16.10.2 reporting and monitoring is supported by the Secretariat of UNESCO, of which I'm a part. For states that are developing access to information legal frameworks or who are improving existing ones, UNESCO advocates the following things. The right to information will be fully realized, most fully realized, when access to governmental information is guaranteed by legislation. In practice, this means all information that is held by public bodies should in principle be subject to disclosure to the public. States should seek to disclose this information proactively, and states should legislate a framework that includes independent oversight to strengthen adherence and safeguard against abuses. And this is a moment when perhaps I apologize that there are no PowerPoint slides to look at, but I can paste some of these bullet points into the chat. So the purpose of UNESCO reporting on 16.10.2, the intention is to provide a platform to spotlight best practices, main areas of and for improvement, and to draw conclusions on how to proceed with further normative work. And going back to the theme of this year's commemoration, this includes considering the impacts of AI and digital transformation on such areas as the right to access information and the right to privacy. UNESCO Secretariat supports member states to advocate for mutual reinforcement of the right of access to information and the right to privacy. And with respect to the most recent reporting, we note that policy guarantees for access to information generally also include an oversight body and a requirement for the public bodies to appoint officers handling access to information issues. UNESCO Secretariat also is tracking progress on access to information, and in 2021-2022, through legal guarantees and their implementation, and with a particular focus on the mandates, sustainability, and activities of national oversight institutions and bodies. We can report a broader recognition about the role of access to information as a critical component for rebuilding communities and for sustaining public services. And the COVID-19 public health information response is a broad case study on the importance of effective and accurate public access to information. And this recognition is valuable. Through SDG monitoring, UNESCO is able to encourage more voluntary national reviews, as well as focus on access to information related issues within the Universal Periodic Review process. This intergovernmental mandate for UNESCO to monitor access to information also allows us to focus on marginalized groups. And as an example, UNESCO and the Carter Center published a report this spring on promoting gender equity in the right of access to information. And it illustrates a dysfunction that basic access to information remains elusive for half of the world's population, for women in many places. So again, as an offshoot of this monitoring function, UNESCO is able to offer its support to member states to promote gender-sensitive right to information laws and policies, and we will advocate for gender-sensitive access to information practices. Examples of both are provided in the report I mentioned, and we will share that link. And finally, I want to highlight an excellent tool in the form of a MOOC on access to information laws and policies and their implementation. Again, we will be sharing the link in the chat. But this is addressed to states with access to information legal guarantees, those who already have them, as well as states that have not adopted such guarantees, but can be able to boost access to information for their citizens by considering similar incremental steps. And those sorts of pragmatic steps forward are demonstrated through case studies and through good practice examples. Access to information should be underscored as an integral human right. There's no ambiguity there. But access to information encompasses core principles of good governance: participation, transparency, accountability. And so today's International Day commemoration, very much thanks to you, is an opportunity once every year to think about something whose importance to our future we don't always think about. And I apologize for this very long introduction. I invite you to re-energize if you're still able. And we look forward to this outstanding group of speakers. I want to recognize UNESCO colleagues, particularly Sasyon and Kulwani and Rohan, for their support in organizing this day. And my own responsibility will be to listen to you today and to try to understand and internalize the information and recommendations that you will be presenting. So I thank you very sincerely for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Joe, for your keynote. And that includes a lot of information of the recent trends in the international and regional level. We've seen the example from Europe, some example from Africa. And now for the next section, we are moving to our region, Mekong region, right? That we will have a panel, a showcase, actually. The first one will be a showcase from 3 countries Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, which they are in different states of implementing or even advocating for the legislation of the right to information. So I think our technical staff are working around to get our speakers on the board over there. And let me explain how we are going to conduct this session a little bit. So we have around 45 minutes for this session. We have 3 speakers from 3 countries. And since this is a very exceptional opportunity that we can learn from each other, and also I hope we can have some more interaction at the end of the session as well. So I would like to ask our 3 speakers to have their showcase presentation for around 7 minutes. And after that, we will save some time for the interaction between the speakers and also with our audience, which might be coming from other countries, posing some question or even share their own experience in their countries as well. So then we can have a diversity of experience to share and learn from each other. And the topic itself is striving for more accountable public entities through access to information experiences from 3 countries. I would like to do it like this, that we start from Cambodia, which we don't have yet the law, the formal legislation on the right to information, but the civil society working very, very hard to push for this law. And we will hear directly from the person who work for this advocacy on this issue. And then we move to Vietnam, where the law has been recently issued, and we will learn from the example of how to exercise the right to information and how it can be useful in the context of human rights advocacy. And then we'll move to Thailand, the place where we have been, this law itself has been promulgated for more than 20 years, and how the role of technology can play in the recently active political participation. So it will be, the order will be like this. So without further ado, I would like to start from our first showcase. Please allow me to introduce our speaker a little bit. Mr. Him Gauthiers, I think you are there already. So Mr. Gauthiers has more than 15 years of experience working in different media organizations and development NGOs, including the Voice of Democracy, the Cambodia Center for Independent Media, UNDP, and many more. So, and he's an expert in news reporting, communications, and advocacy. And he has built a wide network of journalists and civil society organization throughout Cambodia and also in the region as well. Right now, he is the research manager, the research and advocacy manager at the Cambodian Journalists Alliance Association, Cambodia, right? Is that the correct way to go your organization? Thank you very much. So Mr. Gauthiers will share his experience and how the situation in Cambodia is right now. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Tetirat. Hopefully I still have my 7 minutes. Yes, thank you so much. First of all, like Tetirat has briefly introduced, that in Cambodia, we don't have the access to information law adopted yet, and we are working very hard on that. And for your information as well, this morning and today, it's still going on, that we are organizing the National Conference on the Universal Access to Information this morning and today for the whole days. It is organized by our what we call Access to Information Working Group, which consists of 30 CSO in Cambodia, with the participation from various stakeholders and relevant participation, including governments, the representative from the political party, law industry, and community people as well. So let me share you briefly about our advocacy action taken in Cambodia for the sake of access to information for the publics. We have formed up as what we call A2I working group, stand for Access to Information Working Group. Cambodia, one of the members, and actually we work so hard. We have quite regularly monthly meeting among our working group itself. And during monthly meeting, we have also, we conducted physically, and we extend also to online to connect with our people in the communities, including indigenous people, women's groups, youth groups, journalists and citizen journalists, etc. So we have our regularly monthly meeting to update what's going on and the main challenges facing by our CSO colleagues and different target group in the country. Beside that, recently and during the COVID-19 and after the COVID, we worked so hard to, submit our letter to the Prime Minister Cabinet Office to speed up the adoption of the Access to Information draft law. And we try in different channels, like we submit the letter and to the Ministry of Information and to the relevant ministry, like Ministry of Justice. But it's sometimes it's failed and sometimes it's success. Finally, we decide to, to walk on the street among our A2I working groups, more than 30 CSO. We walk on the street to submit a letter to the Prime Minister Office, our own, along with we conduct a press conference in front of the Prime Minister Cabinet Office. And as a result, we got positive response from the government that the Ministry of Information invited us for a physical meeting and also with the National Assembly, and with a new promise that the government will try that they will try their best to have the law adopted as soon as possible. So, however, if you look at the practice on the ground, our people still face many challenges and difficulty in terms of access to information, especially for the journalists, like my organization, Cambodia, and other organizations or journalist colleagues who are working on, to access to, it's hard to access to government records and documents when they produce news story and, request for some data regarding to the government record or, like financial record, etc. So hopefully we still hope that our government will speed up the adoption of the Access to Information law. However, what we can share you as well is that the process of drafting the Access to Information law in Cambodia, we still appreciate the way the government have implemented so far, that they open the space, they open dialogue, our participation, our input from the CSO, from different groups. I mean that they have, compared to other draft law, I think A2I draft law, even it take a bit longer time, but look at the process itself, it's quite good. It's open to welcome all the input from the stakeholders. So again, we do hope that the government will take it and see its importance and have it adopt soon. So I think I will finish now, Titarat. So and welcome for any question or clarification later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for the audience, please, if you have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat box or in the Facebook comment, or if you wish to interact with our speakers directly, please keep that to the end. I will try to allow for some interaction if the time is enough. Okay, thank you very much, Gauthier. So then so from Cambodia, we see that now there is this drafting process, and as you say, the drafting process is including some civil societies as well. And even though this process is still slow, but there is like this progress. Okay, thank you very much. Then I would like to move to quickly to Vietnam, where we already have the law enact, but let's see how the law has been used in the real example of human rights advocacy. We have our speaker, Ms. Ha Ngo, who is the director of Center for Education, Promotion and Empowerment of Women in Vietnam. She has spent 24 years of her life in civil society environment with a strong commitment to social foundation of freedom, equity, the rule of law. She has managed many programs related to women and ethnic minority empowerment, advocacy for freedom of information, budget transparency, and also fair election. She has also experience with the UN Human Rights Mechanism as well. So Ms. Ha Ngo, the floor is yours. And I think you have the slide to share with us as well.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon from Vietnam. Yes, Vietnam adopted the law on access to information in 2016. So we based on this law and the land law to implement an action research on to evaluate how the local government disclose the information on land master plan and also land pricing framework last year. So why we conducted this action research? As you know, the land conflict is a major issue that spans decades in Vietnam. And every year, the government received a lot of complaints from citizens for their land right. And the lack of transparency in land use planning and implementation is one of the main causes of land conflict. So that's why our organizations and UNDPs joined conducted this action research in last year, and this year we do the second action research to compare to the finding of last year. So another reason that we want to note why every year since 2011, only 20% of interview through PAPI is a Public Administration Performance Index in Vietnam. Through PAPI, we know that only 20% of respondent or informant confirm that they can access to land information. So we have to find why this number. So the research objectives, we focus on 4 objectives. The first one, to review public access to information about annual land use plans and land pricing framework as issued by district and provincial government in all of 63 provinces in Vietnam. And the second objective is to develop a website to connect the official information on land use plans and land pricing framework issued and publicized by all districts and provinces in the country. And objective 3 is to experiment on request for land information as provided for the law on access to information and also the landlord. And the fourth one, we make recommendations for the government, and especially for the amendment of landlord in Vietnam right now. So for the research method, we have used 4 methods as in the screen. The first one is to review legal document on disclosure of land information. The second one is to review the disclosure of information on land use plan at district level and land pricing framework at provincial level on the e-portals of the government, of the local government. And the third one is to send out requests for land information to local state agency And the last one is to develop an e-portal about disclosure of land information and survey users' satisfaction with how land information is disclosed on the e-portals of local government. So this is some initial findings through the action research. We found that only 337 out of 704 district level agencies have a publicized district land use plan on their e-portals in 2021. So, and at the provincial levels, we found only 27 out of 63 provinces and municipalities have a public provincial land pricing framework in 2021. So we make this map on our website. So more details you can see. Not only we count how many local government office disclose the land information, but we also count if they disclose on times or not. So through our finding, we can see that only 123 per 337 organizations disclose the information timely, and the rest is late than the deadline, or we cannot see on their website. So for the package of the information as the landlord, we found that only 17% of organizations who disclose information published or disclose the full package, and the rest they disclose the a part of package document. You can see through the figures. So we, for the sending request for land information, we sent the request to more than 560 district state agencies. So our researcher with the roles of researchers, lawyer, ordinary citizen, and real estate agent to send the request to the local government. So for the result, we found that in general, you can see there are 51.7% of organizations didn't give any feedback to our request. So for the request by real estate agents, you can see only 12.9% of request was provided by the government, and for the ordinary citizens, there are only 22.9% of organizations provided information. So for the lawyers, only 14.9% organization agencies provided land information, and for the researcher, there are 15.3% agencies provided. So for the refused feedback, we found that the most of agencies use the law on access to information to refuse our request. And for the last number of agency, state agency at district level, given no feedback to our request. So this is, you can see the accountabilities of the local government to citizens' request for information. So through the sending requests for information, we sent some requests without citations of law on access to information, and others with the citation of law on access to information. So you can see on the figures that with the request, with the citation, so you can see that the local government refused much more than the with the citation. So you can see through the request for information, the ordinary people received much the feedback than others, and without citation, we received the different result from the state agency at district level. So with the review of the website of provincial and district state agencies for land information, we put the link of this document on their e-portal through our website at the we call the công khai thông tin đất đai. It means that the land information disclosure website by our organizations. So this is like some findings that I would like to share with you, because I have only 7 minutes. But through this action research and other research, annual research by our organizations and our partner, we found that the state agencies still confuse between law on access to information and the law on legislation education to the citizen. So that's why they don't realize their obligation for right to information of the people. So that's why for CPU, our organization as a leading and facilitating organizations for law on access to information, we must focus on duty bearers of right to access to information in Vietnam. So this is our experience to share with you through some finding of our action research. So feel free to raise any comment or question. I am going to share more with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Ha Ngo, for such a detailed explanation of how this project was done. And of course, it was enabled by the law itself, right? And I really like your point about focusing on the duty bearers, and maybe we have to educate the government officials as well, that they know that they have the duty to provide this information. And it's quite clear from your showcase, from your presentation, that this is not only benefit for the civil society or general public, but also for the economy side, for the private agencies as well. And maybe I'll come back, maybe we can discuss more about like how this website has been used, or the map has been used by general public later. Thank you very much, Ms. Ha Ngo. Then we move quickly to Thailand, the showcase from Thailand, where we already have this law for a while. But recently we have heard a lot more about the integration of technology, or some we call civic tech, right? The participation from people. And we have Ms. Thanisara Rương who is a CEO and co-founder of Punch Up, Thailand's first data storytelling studio. And with her background in online journalism and her interest in data science, coding, and management, now she is a project manager and co-founder of Vivis, which is a civic technology for Thailand's democracy. It uses data and digital technology to promote democratic ideas and create more civil participation in Thailand politics. Ms. Thanisara, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me here today. It's my honor to share with you about the project that Tidra already introduced. It's called Vivis. I will tell you about who we are, why we exist, and what we do to try to enable more accessible to information about politics, human rights, and democracy in Thailand. As mentioned, even though Thailand has the law about public information, I think there is still several problems and a big room for improvement. Some situations are similar, like the cases that both former speakers share. And we think as a civil society, as the people in this society, like us, need to do something. First of all, I would like you to know about us. We are a group of young generations, designers, developers, and storytellers who share a dream about better democracy, where a more participatory and transparent system exists. And we believe that one of the ways to become closer to that dream is to empower people with data and technology. We also strongly believe that the right to information is a basic right for every one of us in a democratic society and could lead us to a more rational public decision and constructive social debate. So we just came together and tried to make things that we always want to see in our society just happen. For over 3 years, we have developed several projects to encourage accessibility to data and information, and also empower people on 3 main levels. Fundamentally, our projects are expected to enable as much as possible about accessible public data in order to explain some social phenomena, answer some questions, keep people informed for decision making, or maybe lead to possible solutions about some issue. And for the second level, besides providing information, we have tried to push some projects to increase participation levels, of course, based on data. I think this will emphasize the impact of open data. And our final goal, which is quite our dream, is to connect civil society in this country together and also bridge the gap between civil society and the government or public organizations to work together on open information and participation. As we think this is a big gap in our society and result in the poor access to information, even though we have the law. Today, I would like to share some cases that we have done and maybe try to reach those 3 levels of information and participation. The first one, we call it their work for us. Since we noticed that Thai society has always debated the moral values and performances of politicians, mostly depending on individual opinions, and those debates often became emotional arguments, we think that because we lack an overview picture and information for judgment that make us use only emotion to discuss and debate. And we investigated and found that because official data from the parliament is kind of difficult to access, some are not available, not regularly updated, or many are in the poor format. It requires a lot of effort to access and understand those data. So it's impossible for people to debate based on the data. So we have spent a lot of time using an official information act, requesting their information and digitizing and organizing those messy data, and develop a platform, try to make those information easier for everyone to use. And now I think everyone in this country can search for who their representatives are and what they vote for us. amazingly surprised to me that about 250,000 people use this website per year. I don't expect so many people use this at the first place, but yes, it makes our team so happy. Then we apply a similar idea to the project Promise Tracker, but for monitoring political parties. You may know that all political campaigns that each political party promote during the general election are scattered among news and social media. And we think 4 years of an election cycle is long enough to make us forget what they promised. So it's really a struggle for every voter to track those promises. And we think that maybe our team could help with gathering all those promises and also track what their members have done to realize those promises as well. We expect that this will keep the political parties more accountable and also help people or voters to consider whom to vote for in the upcoming election. The third project used by a lot of people that I would like to share with you is the Open Budget project that we co-developed with Move Forward Party. In our country, reviewing budgets has always been a big pain for members of parliament and seems like it's impossible for people like us to understand because of the overwhelming list of expenses written on 30 printed books and almost 10,000 pages of scanned PDF that make not even possible for anyone to search, even for an item they're interested in. Therefore, for national budget, into 2023, we adopted some technology to turn those paper-based files into a machine-readable format, where others could further use this data and information. And then we also developed an interface to visualize those data and equip searchable function, allowing anyone to easily understand and search for what they want to know about the national budget. So we suppose there is no more barrier for monitoring national budget spending anymore. And at the city level, we have pushed the budget project to another level of participation. For Bangkok budgeting, like national budget, we digitize paper-based data and turn them into an interactive platform, visualizing the city expense and also allowing people to vote on the city development by rating, ranking, and commenting about the project that they plan to spend the money. And I think this becomes an opening space for people's voice on information. Thousands of users joined this campaign and their opinion were submitted to Bangkok Metropolitan Administration. The last project I would like to show you is Open Data for Open Parliament, which is one of the first projects we reached the level of collaboration that we always dream for. This project actually results from a lot of time and a lot of effort that our team has tried to make parliamentary and public budget data more accessible. We keep requesting more information and better format from the authorities. So it's our big struggle every time we start a project that even we have an official information act, we ask ourselves why we need to spend a lot of effort to request, to wait, and to digitize the public information. So we think it could be better if we could encourage an accessibility and a good quality at the first place. So we find a way to work with the Secretary of Parliament to redesign the practice of open parliament data to meet the needs of members and also the people like us. We do hope this project will enable more efficient access to parliament information and can be a sample of co-development between civil society and the public organization. In summary, all we have done is just to push our society towards our dream democracy. We believe that the society belongs to the people and could be driven forward by our participation based on information. So we will keep trying to enable more accessible data and encourage more participation despite a lot of challenges. I think what we have done for years has already set some new standards in this society, and we will keep doing more for sure. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nathanisara, for explaining, for giving us details of very exciting projects, 4 projects, right? And actually, I was about to ask, did these projects give some positive effect, or did you see any change? And it seemed like your last project, in collaboration with the Secretary of Parliament, seems to give some signal of change from the government side already. Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I will go back to Mr. Gautier so that we can have a little bit more information from Cambodia as well. I would like to ask a little bit more about the drafting process of in Cambodia. Is there any obstacles that you see in the drafting process of this law, and how did you mobilize people or civil society to join with you to see the importance of the right to information? I mean, because you mentioned that there were this meeting or collaboration between civil societies during in your movement as well. So, Mr. Gautier, if you can elaborate a little bit more about those points briefly.
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, there were some obstacles during the drafting process. Even the governments open for our participation, discussion, and inputs. However, in terms of technical terms, used in the draft law itself, it's something like so vague and broad. For example, some articles still mention that they will not disclose some information which is affect the national security or the government interests, so on and so forth. So that's why we have conducted meeting with our stakeholders and community people, indigenous people, many times to collect, to mobilize all inputs to be submitted to the governments. However, we could see that according to the latest draft law we received from the government, that the Ministry of Information have finished the technical discussion with the Ministry of Justice. I think among our inputs, our recommendation to the government, to the draft law itself, we could see that majority of it still not accepted by the government. I mean that the government doesn't accept our recommendation and inputs. So it's still, according to our CSO, it's still there are 9 main articles still problem for our people. Including, you know, like the term using in the law itself. And for example, in the Article 15, they said that at least it must be 40 days in between when someone requests information from the government. So they have to wait for another 40 days to request another information, so something and so forth. So I mean that in the draft law itself, still like have many technical challenges for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think there's a long way, a struggle that we have to face until the law will be passed. My best wish for the hard work of Cambodian civil societies. And yes, I would like to move on to Ms. Ha Ngo about her work to elaborate on the oversight mechanism in Vietnam, because you mentioned that many requests receive no response at all. So how the oversight mechanism is working over there, or is there any? And how did you engage with general public and maybe also private sectors to join or to use data in your project? Because I feel like the more people use, the more people see how important the right to information is, right?
Yes. So in the law on access to information, the oversight is regulated to the National Assembly and People Council at local level. And also we can use the law on complaint and the law on denunciations to for the access to information or for the refuse or no feedback for information requests or no information disclosure. The committees for information is not regulated in the law on access to information because the political system of Vietnam. So the draft teams didn't mention such kind of mechanisms in the law, in the draft law. Even they found that it is a very useful mechanism at that time. So, so that's why it is quite difficult for us to work on the refusions or no feedback back for our request or so that's why as a civil society organizations, we must focus on promotions of the law on access to information. We work as the promoters or supporters for the government agencies at the, both central and local level to understand about their duties in the laws, and also make them not confused between the law on access to information and law on legislation education to the people. So this is a way to work with the local government. And also we try our best to build some model. We work with some department and some localities to support them to build their model and to fulfill the task regulated by the law on access to information. So this is our process to work with the central and local government for this law. We also work with the Ministry of Justice to inform them that how the law implement in the fact in the situation of implementation of law on access to information, because they are quite busy with other duties also. So the law on access to information only one, and the lack of human resource and financial report to support local government and state agencies. So that's why we have to collect evidence to inform them how to promote the state agencies to fulfill their duties for law on access to information. And for the public engagement, we work with the young people. Yes, young people to understand about right to access to information, and also how the law on access to information help them to improve their life. For the private sector, funny story I want to tell you that when I work for process of compiling this law, when I work with the enterprise association, they confirmed to me that they didn't need transparent and environment. they need gray environment for their benefit, you see. So it is quite difficult to work with the enterprise to promote transparency. So that's why we work among our civil society actors, and also try to cooperate with the state agencies, and also to engage young people to understand about their right to information.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think that answer exactly tells us why we need transparency, right? To increase the equality or the equal access to the economic resources, right? And always the collaboration is always a complex issue. But from what you said, I think among the three, our three speakers, they all talk about the collaboration with the government and also how the civil society can fill the gap. In the government side.
Yes, and also I think why we paid we paid attention, or we try our best to work with duty bearers, because we think about the availabilities of information on their website and also e-portals of the government. And when the people need the information, everything is available there.
Yes, thank you very much. I see. So the availability is the key here. And I would like to ask the last question for Ms. Thanissara. Since you mentioned that you had this participation from the young people a lot, and you use a lot of technology, which of course they are very exciting. But I'm curious that how about the participation from the older generations, or how did this technology, did it facilitate, or did it become some obstacles for the generation that might not be familiar with this technology?
Yeah, I think during the first year we can reach mostly the young generation, because we think like we start from the young generation group, so we cannot figure how to reach the elderly people. But I think for general election and the latest Bangkok election, we know how to design in the terms of inclusivity. So we noticed from our analytics that a lot of maybe elderly people, I don't want to use this word, but maybe from them the other generation can participate in our website and use our information. So I think is only by design. If you want people to participate as much as possible, you have to think. You don't have to use a complicated technology. You use what they always use in daily life, stuff like they can send toward the Line application, which is mostly used among the elder people in Thailand. And you don't have to provide a lot of data in the first place. Just like provide them when they would like to know things. So I think it's also our learning and our improvement during working with the technology and information. But I think we also learned about not only about the generation, but for the disability, because a lot of people with color blindness also use our website, and we when we get the feedback from them, we try to contact them and kind of consult them how can we make it better. So I think it's about learning and improving every time we face a new challenge. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think you said a very, very important thing, that when we integrate technology into the right to information or open data context, we have to be careful that the design is inclusive enough. And I like the way that you said that it is like improving and learning from the problems that occur. Thank you so much. I think our time has come, but I think we can conclude the first session that we learned from the three countries that are in different stage of development regarding the right to information. We learned that there are some struggles, some obstacles that civil society, general public has to work together, try to fill the gap strategically. And at the same time, we have to think about possible partners. And of course, using technology, the technology that is used must be considered in the context of the people who really use it, not just only for the sake of introducing technology. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to pass over the microphone to Ajahn Pichitra, our next moderator. And I think the main language for our session today will switch to Thai. But of course, our audience, you can still use the interpretation mark, the global mark, to listen to this session in English continuously. Thank you very much.
From Faculty of Law, Thammasat University. สำหรับเซสชันนี้นะคะก็จะเป็นเซสชันภาคภาษาไทยนะคะ
So next session will be moderated in Thai. And we thought about 45 minutes initially, but maybe now we have about half an hour. And we have 5 speakers joining us about open data. We will talk about it to access of information, public information, and government information. Yeah, we have Deputy Director from DGA, from Digital Government Development Agency, Kun Nathawat Waranopakun. Welcome. And second panelist, we have Assistant Professor Pumin, who is the Ethics Committee of Artificial Intelligence from NSTDA, National Science Technology Development Agency. Welcome, Ajahn Pumin. And thirdly, we have someone from the Parliament, a member of Parliament, who represents us, Kun Nattapong Reung Panyawut, an MP from Move Forward Party. Good afternoon. And we also have the data user from journalism, and he is well recognized, Kun Pong Pipat, from senior editor from the Matter. We also have representative from the Office of the Official Information Commission, Kun Pawana, from OIC, Office of the Official Information Commission. Good afternoon, everyone. And so actually we have the order. So I will invite Kun Wee from Kun Pong Pipat from the Matter as the data user. I heard that you have established groups and have requested and demanded open data from during COVID crisis, and also you requested through many agencies. So first 5 minutes, how has your experience been, and has there been any development? So this is a reflection from someone, how the situation of open data has improved and what are the standards of each agency. I think in summary, I would say that I think me and my fellow journalists had this impression that the agency didn't disclose the information because their executive didn't understand the benefits, like why disclosing the information would bring about for their agencies and the public. That was our belief. But after joining the discussion in open data events, I joined to the National Anti-Corruption Reformation Committee, and there is a topic about disclosing the information without request. I found through this experience that actually the executive had this vision. They understood what benefits the open data will bring about to the society. But the reason why they don't disclose or disclose partially, I understand that they fear the auditing, that they will be audited after disclosing the information. And also they don't trust the public. They don't understand what the public will use the information for example, the fiscal budget. They send the budget in PDF and not in Excel. So I think that reflects their fear that they don't want the data to be edited and misused. That's my belief. At the same time, I talked to the mid-generation and also young generation of civil servants. They understand the benefits of open data, but maybe they're not in the position of authority to unlock that disclosure. I think a lot of agencies are doing very well in disclosing in the government office. But I think the government system has a lot of loopholes and complication. And so if there are many hoops to go through, a lot of people don't want to go through that or use it. Another limitation is that they don't have tools or they don't have data. But during COVID crisis, we found that the government agencies have a lot of information, a lot of data, and they have a lot of tools. But mindset is the key barrier. They don't trust the people. And it's like, oh, what would happen if we disclose the information? Will be chaotic and so on. So we formed this group called 333 because this is a group of 333 people signing a petition to open 7 public health agencies to disclose the vaccine data. And the result is that all the 7 agencies, none of them disclose the information, especially the procurement and distribution of vaccines. Yeah.
And when the data is not disclosed, a lot of people purchase the vaccine themselves. These information should be urgent, and the cost is on the people, and it's a question of the accountability of these government entities. And government agencies NACC is supposedly the most transparent organization, but it has become questionable. So I am trying to convince them that disclosure of information is not only transparency. There might be some question, but if it's justifiable, it's fine. And to a certain point, we will become more credible. Also, when there is disclosure and some information, if it's useful, the public will actually exploit those information. So the people can actually work for you. You just have to disclose. So this is how I'm trying to incentivize the government agencies. However, they are still reluctant because they don't want to be audited. It is true, but it is untrue. But because some of the information is, those vital, important information for the people. So there are tools, there are information, there should be a proper dashboard inside, and what can be disclosed should be disclosed. And all this information can be utilized and exploited by the private sector and the people. So what kind of information should be disclosed? I have listed a couple of them, such as, tax spending or information on people's living or information that is of public interest. And also there's another way that to think about this, and on the flip side, where instead of asking what kind of information to be disclosed, but I think it's about asking back, which information that they should ask not to be disclosed. So the media, the public, and also now the manner is, information is available upon request. However, in reality is that we don't even know what kind of information is disclosed. Also, just recently, documents of the cabinet meeting, some of them should be public. So do you think you see more of the information undisclosed? In my experience, yes. And also, the reason why it's more they're not disclosing is, and I think we'll get information why, because open disclosing, they are actually using the principle of the national security information that they want they do not want to disclose. So they're mainly holding it confidential and exempt and only based on exemptions. And a lot of people are objecting to this. Many students, the media have actually submitted a petition to object this. That's why the law has not passed to the parliament. So the law actually has a lot of gaps of loophole. And we are actually don't know what's going to happen. Some of the agencies are actually denying a disclosure of information. And that's actually, affecting the process within and inside that particular legislation, there has no word of digital electronic included because the law has been drafted long ago back in 1997. But their proposed amended version has flipped the paradigm around, and that's even going to cause more problems. So, I think we should flip that around, and it is about the authority actually requesting the permission on what information they have to keep confidential.
เมื่อกี้คุณหวีโยนมาแล้วส่วนหนึ่งเนาะว่าจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยท่านสสเองก็ได้มีการเสนอในส่วนของพรบข้อมูลข่าวสารด้วยเข้าสภาใช่ไหมคะลองเล่าให้เราฟังนิดนึง
So you have actually taken part, right? As a member of the parliament. Can you tell me about this process? So a very good afternoon, everyone. So what has long been discussed for several years now is they want to have disclosure with exemption. The gist of it is couldn't be already presented before. It is about, shifting the burden. But official information right now, the burden is placed on the people. So if the public would want information, it is our burden to request for that information. So actually, causing that burden. So if we actually shift and amend the law, so these official information by default, it is something to be disclosed to public without having to request. And if there is a necessity to keep it confidential, the matters that have implications on national security, they can actually choose to select and keeping those information confidential instead of, disclosing everything. So I think that's actually the gist of this point. The budget information, I'd like to share a little bit on my experience. The national budget, and I have worked closely with VVIS and disclosing the recent budget. And it came in a CSV file, and we had to convert that. So most government agencies, the budget, they are spending this budget. They are not actually protective of the information. It is actually the Department of Budget that they want to keep the budget confidential. So when I actually work with the budget committee, so this request for budget from all the government agencies, they are coming in about 5.5 trillion, and they have been adjusted to 3.3 trillion. What we wanted to validate or verify as the people is that we wanted to see the criteria on how they select and how they have narrowed it down from 5 trillion to 3 trillion. So the department requesting budget would want to know as well, the departments all over Thailand that propose, to secure those budget. Everyone wanted to know why their budget was cut. So when I sat in that audit committee, we had all information of their budget proposal from all the department, but we were not able to cover hundreds and hundreds. So we went into the Department of Budget and we wanted to request for all these proposals to see why the budget, that year budget was cut from 5 trillion to 3 trillion. However, the Department of Budget gave a reason that it is the authority of the administrative side, but the legislative side was not did not have authority to intervene. So it is actually, so we thought we were exercising our rights by the constitutions where we are able to request information. From that day to this day, working in the parliament, I have not seen that information from Department of Budget.
ถ้าอย่างนั้นกลับมาทางท่านสสก่อนในส่วนของ Open Data ที่เรามองทิศทางหลังจากทำมาเป็นสส3 ปีเมื่อกี้คุณหวีบอกว่าเฮ้ยมันมีความแบบ
So you said earlier that there has been more information withheld. So is there any way that we can actually promote more public information disclosure? You know, being trustworthy is actually would occur at the open data. As a member of a parliament, do you see that possibility that Thailand can move towards open data? Well, as a member of the parliament and the CSO, I think we can work on by these Public Information Act, which our party is proposing to the parliament. So we wanted to be able to be considered at the parliament level. I'd like to end here first, just to give, I think, you know, if we would actually give authority for agencies to have discretion on what to disclose and not disclose, everything will be, you know, in alignment with we have had low corruption index. So corruption perception has always been low. So this ranks Thailand and very consistent with Kunbi. So it's been very hard for agencies to be able to transparent because they have the authority to disclose or not disclose. So in the long run, I think we have to flip this law around where everything should be open with exemptions on what you have to keep confidential. I think if we look at the law here, and in order for, you know, this disclosure of information not to be based on the parties or the regime of that administration. So there are actually two aspects I think that will lead us to more transparency, is that the meeting minutes of these committee meetings, for example, the Thailand's trade competition, we have never known, you know, what kind of meetings they have, or even the NBCT's committee. We have never seen their meeting minutes. So if we disclose whatever is going on in the meeting, I think it's going to hold the committee members accountable for their decisions. If they recognize that people can actually see what decisions they make, you know, that would make them more accountable. So this is what we have proposed. It's clearly stated in the law amendment that we are proposing that all the meeting minutes of these committee members will have to be made public. Also, the definition of the public database is considered a public information. This is going to affect the budgeting and tax. We actually now has the system of e-budgeting and e-procurement, and there is actually a database that exists. If we specify in the law that all public databases is spending the people's taxes, since, you know, there are spending these taxes, the information in those database should be, you know, public information.
Okay, อันนี้ทางท่าน
ค่ะ
ครับผม
ค่ะขอบคุณ
ก็
ค่ะ
ครับผมก็คือเอาตัวอย่างมาจากตัวเนี้ยครับอาจารย์ครับผม
ได้ครับไม่เผอิญสัญญาณกระตุกนิดนึงอาจารย์ก็เลยคิดว่าจบแล้วมั้ยหรือว่าจะ
จบแล้วครับ
So I think there was some signal interruption now, but I think you're done for now, right? Maybe we can continue later, but the conversation now we talked about from the civil society side, they want the full disclosure, right? And then full disclosure as a norm with some this exception. But we want to hear from the government. We have the representative from DGA, the Digital Government Development Agency, the Deputy Nattawat. As we know, as Kun Pongpipat said, the government agencies, I talked to Kun Supot, the director of DGA, and he said that we want to closure, but there are some mindset barrier, cultural barriers. But Kun Nattawat, do you see that the mindset plays a very influential role of the actions of the civil servants, right? So please share with us with your perspective from DGA. So after listening to MP Nattapong and Kun Pongpipat from the matters, I think we have the same common ground. You want the public information to be disclosed. We have data.go.th, which is the open data platform from the government. I think it has been 4 years in operation. So let's say this is a 4-year-old toddler. So this platform still trials and errors and learns. But what happened from our mandate and policy that DGA receives from e-governments? One of the aspects is data. In order to become the e-government is to be an open government in terms of data. But I think where we are now is the state where we have to be flexible and we adapt a lot. So are we adapting well? I think we have done a good job in adapting. If you compare it from 3 years ago, we have almost 8,000 sets of data that have become disclosed. And the formats of the data, DGA has supported at the policy level. We work with over 400 departments across over 20 ministries and also like other organizations. I think this process takes time, but it doesn't mean that it will stop us. We are working at the policy level, setting up how-to standards and also a consultancy. I think in terms of policy, if we want to achieve open data, all the executives of each department, from the Director General assistants or the head of departments, they understand what open data is. But then Kun Pongpipat said, okay, you have data, they want to disclose and they are afraid of the backlashes. And I think there is another aspect, Kun Pongpipat. I think the digital tool is quite new. The e-services in the government agencies under 20 ministries and more departments, I think most of them are on paper. Maybe we can conduct the e-services only 50 to 60%. So the next step is to digitize all the data on paper. And so when this data is not digitized to be machine readable, I mean, that is technical barrier in terms of format and template of the data that we have in hand. So I think one aspect is the the past data that was collected on paper, all of that data needs to be digitized. And the new data that we collected digitally, we have to screen, okay, which one can be disclosed first? Because you have to consider that over 20 ministry and over 400 departments, there's also central level and also subnational levels. So let's say this is a game, right? This is the telephone game. When you say one sentence and then each person pass the same sentence on to 20 people, 50 people, you know, your sentence will never remain the same in the communication. And so what the best practice that we can do based on the existing policy from the Information Access Law of 1997, and comparing that act with the progress nowadays, I think we have improved a lot. We have about 10 million users who use the platform and download the data. And we have the diversity of formats. We have the Excel, we have CSV, we have PDF formats, and you can process the data right away, and you can have the API connection with the data also. I think this is progress. However, we have the policy, we have the how-to practice. We need to add the data in the framework. We need to educate everyone involved. You know, we need to work on the mindset, as mentioned by Kun Pong Pipat and MP Nattapong. We have to teach them, educate them, what types of information can be freely disclosed. Because the culture of the government agency is that they need to wait for authority and orders. And so if there's a standard of like what kind of information can be freely disclosed without receiving the order, that will unlock that culture. We have data governance committee who can be an instrument to work with different ministries and departments to work on data governance, to manage levels of data, the level of clearance. And during this process, there's a lot of confusion. We have the PDPA, and then it is interpreted in many ways. And so if we strictly or blindly follow PDPA, then we cannot disclose any information, right? But we have to understand the spirit is like we can disclose the information in terms of statistics, but we don't disclose the individual or private data, personal data. Yeah, so as MP Nattapong has said, you know, people want to see the statistics, want to see the data, to see the big picture. They don't want to see the individuals at the micro level. So when we talk about the how-to, the best practice, we have to consider these levels at how we can reduce these gaps for the operation level in the government agencies. There are many acts involved that people bring into discussion and many acts on the way of adopting. And I think in this, I think Thailand is weak in following up. You know, when the policy is there, when the act is there, we need to follow up. And the civil servants are working at overcapacity, you know, like their duties and office work and paperwork that everyone has to do. I think the following up on these new policies has to be supported. So in short, I would say that I'm not worried about policy because the policy is in place. The format, the standards is there. but we need more support in following up. And in that we have DGA and also other agencies to educate, to provide trainings, to do skill buildings for digital tools to screen the data and mentoring. I think this has been done, but the seriousness, the intensity in each ministry, each department varies. If you go into data.go.th, I think it's more than half, or from over 7,000 data sets. I think over half of them are very useful. And from MP Natapong and Kun Pong Pipat, I understand that you have seen this website, but a lot of data, as you said, cannot be used because some people use the PDF and it's a scanned PDF. It's not PDF. It's not generated from the computer PDF format. It's a scanned document PDF. And so people cannot use that data. So we need more consultancy. We need to consult more that, okay, this kind of scanned PDF is not useful. A PDF has to be computer generated so that people can use the data. And if they can use that data, they can process the data into something new and feed the useful data back to your agency. And so this is what DGA tries to connect and promote.
So maybe we'll hear on the second round. Sometimes they feel that, data are used to produce fake news. The officials were really, Kun Jo Hironaka, who is our keynote speaker, has mentioned that the challenge of open data is the cultural and organizational barrier. So similar to what Kun Pipat is saying, so the organization serves as the barrier to have this open data. And he also mentioned data and infrastructure. It shouldn't be challenging in Thailand. We're quite advanced. And the other point he mentioned is the human resources. So who are contributing to this digital transformation? Are we still lacking that? Well, it's necessary because, developing this data, I think fundamentally everyone should know how to use a spreadsheet or Excel. And if the format is in the Excel, it's easier to work on. It doesn't have to be, the person doesn't have to be, well versed in IT, but just basic Excel. But usually, the person who processed the data is not the one using the data. So you may be well versed with data, but they don't know what it's going to be used for. So they're just going to work on their own perception. So if the users and those who process the data would communicate more closely, the data can be processed in a more efficient way. And, if people can download and use it later. So that's necessary as well. And that's the basic of conducting the data preparation. So before going to big data, that's already, towards the end. So the data needs to be prepared first. So maybe we can hear from Kun Pawana. So she was also here in the last panel. So DGA, is actually playing a big part on enabling the data. So maybe I want to hear Kun Pawana. So maybe can you tell us a little bit from the Office of the Official Information Commission? So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate in this International Day of Universal Access to Information. So this particular act has been developed. This official act since 1997 is actually the first central law that promotes access to information, official information. So I think it's a very important legislation because it actually serves as the first step where we have been holding all the information, and that actually stirred up or caused that important event, which is the Black May. And there has been a strong push to pass this, Official Information Access Act in 1997 to disclose public information. So people in OIC currently now, our organization, we have a very open mindset and we are aiming, our goal is to aim for open government. So it is the government's mandate to actually go forward along the National Economics and Social Development Plan. So the amendment of the Official Information Act, this is the objective is to align with the current needs. So there are four basic elements that we want. First is we want this to serve as clearly the criteria that enable the rights of the people to access to official information. The second objective is to actually focus on the national security aspect and also the criteria of these private information that is under the information. So it would be in alignment with the PDPA and also the period of time to disclose this public information to actually be transparent and systematic with clear criteria and holding the information and the period of time to be inconsistent with the National Archive Act. And in order to enforce this law, there are details indicated in the proposed amendment that we want to involve the media or those who object to this and hear out. And we have held the consultation meeting to point out what they are objecting. And we open this to public hearing. And we have actually disclosed this information on our website and also conducting it under the Constitution. And also we consulted with the Council of State, who are actually experts in the Thai law. So we have done this according to the official procedures. So you are actually have conducted this in the correct procedure. We have also conducted wide consultations and invited them to declare all the objections that other agencies we may have. And we have done an in-depth discussions. So this Official Information Act on the 20th of April in 2011, we had the cabinet resolution that indicate that the government agencies should disclose all the official information on their websites, their plans, their budgets, those basic information that belongs to the agencies should be opened to taxpayers or the public without having to request for it. So it's an open. Yes, that's the cabinet's resolution back in 2011. And in April 2021, there is another cabinet resolution specifying that the government agency should disclose information by the transparent indicators through their websites. So the public need not request for this. All this information is deemed to be disclosed on the websites. So we want to take part in achieving the open government. So some government agencies, they are quite reserved and are reluctant. However, this Official Information Act actually indicate that they have to disclose. So government officials, if they disclose information with integrity and good faith, they are protected by law and they are not liable. But hypothetically, if we wanted information when we requested, but we did not get a reply, what can we do if we do not get response? So it has been quite challenging, right? You know, if the government has a good intent and everyone is aiming to be transparent, so government officials, you know, they can be reserved, you know, don't know if they can disclose the information, but actually the law actually protects them. So the Thai law is quite advanced in itself. But what if we are in reality, you know, we don't get response? What can we do about that? The OIC, what do you have to say on that? Do you have priorities? What type of information that they have to disclose? So maybe if you give me more concrete example on what kind of information that was requested, and it was non-responsive. Most information we usually disclose unless it is, you know, it's held confidential because it's pertaining national security. Well, usually general information, official information, all government agencies are obligated. You know, it can only be exempted under Section 85 because actually Section 15. So Section 15 exempts, you know, information pertaining national security and private information and information that has been marked confidential, like the cabinet's resolution. Cabinet's resolution are actually marked with confidentiality level, but once, you know, it has become a resolution, it should be disclosed to the public. Some information are unable to be disclosed before they come to a resolution. That because, you know, if disclosed beforehand, there are susceptible to interventions. However, under this Official Information Act, the fundamental action is to be disclosed. And the amendment that we are proposing, we have actually lifted some of the official discretion. So our discretions, we are considering the public interest. So in this current digital world, it is almost impossible, to hold everything confidential. So whatever, there is no secret in the world, but, I think 25 years ago, the information, is not as, we did not have that abundance of information like way back 25 years ago. But with today, we've had more information. Just let me give you an example. Like we have a permanent secretary that had some complaints. So that former permanent secretary requested information of all schools because there's a massive information. So we sort of need a more specific request for that. So if you think about, requesting information in all schools in Thailand, and one official are unable to process that because it actually exceeds the power of that officers. So our commission requested back if the request could be made in more specific period. So in OIC, how many officers do you have? We are 37 people in the commission receiving all requests from all over Thailand. Moreover, we are transforming to electronic information. So all the government agencies and everything should be able to be searched on the website. So if we have this electronic database, and we want all the government agencies to be able to provide this information in electronic form. Dr. Pumin, please. Because we are currently talking about the challenges. Maybe we have more challenge in the future, like artificial intelligence. So in the keynote, UNESCO already mentioned that AI should enable more transparency. But personally, I think it could cause more digital divide having the AI. So Mr. Pudit, you do a lot of research on that. Maybe you can share your 2 cents.
So thank you so much. I actually learned a lot from this forum. Since I'm a professor, as an academic, I work with all of the sectors actually. So I've seen different aspects. And so when we talk about AI, all countries are focusing on open data, and that contributes to the development of the AI, and who is leading in AI will have the capacity or potential to be the world's leaders. Because right now the term is not digital divide, but intelligence divide right now. And so we have to consider the journey, how each country has improved. I think the metaphor that I want to point out, it's like a 3-legged chair. They have to concern about the security, technology, and economic development. So these 3-legged chairs are the foundation that every country has to balance themselves. When we compare to European countries to ASEAN, like ASEAN countries, we also can look at the developed country like Singapore, how they've done it. And a lot of conversations are overlapping, about the open data. My house is by the river. And when we want to manage something to regulate the water gate, we have to go to the district chief, and so it's not in time. It doesn't solve the problem in time. And so I think the situation of open data is like that. We have to consider three aspects when we talk about consumer protection, we talk about digital rights. When I conducted a research, I call it 3 Gs and 2 S, so 3 gaps.
แกปคืออะไรคือเรามาหาดูว่าในกฎหมายของบ้านเราเนี่ย
So gaps mean the legal gaps. And the second G is guillotine. Because guillotine, because we have too many acts, too many law. And all of them are enforced and it's so confusing for civil servants. So the representative from OIC is very right. Our legislation system is outdated. It's from 19th century. Many countries nowadays use technology in legislation. And how can AI provide a solution for this? The enforcement of law among the government agencies, because they are confusing, so people don't do anything. So this is one of the gap. This is the effect of the gap and the guillotine in Thai legislation. And so the solution, if we draw the lessons from Europe, they talk about the GDPR and also they made mistake as well compared to China and the US. And eventually they joined the approach of open data. So they have the AI Act to connect all of the data and they make a disclaimer in the law itself or the draft. For example, in the US, they provide a disclaimer in the law what are the exceptions of this open data. And so with these disclaimers, they have clarity. So what are exempted and everything is enforced by one law. That's one example. The second example is when it comes to AI, many countries employ 2 approaches for solutions. The first one is to create a legislation, and the second approach is to come up with a policy. And so many countries are not ready for the second approach because their strategy is not up to date yet. And another term we need to consider is the data intermediary. When we work with the AI, we have to work on a large amount of data, sharing data between private sector and public sector and many sectors. So today, the conversation about AI is that every regulators on data, can you merge and maybe found one committee? But then the private sector would ask, it's like, if you merge into one committee, how can we ensure the transparency? So some countries propose that, can we use blockchain technology? And so once the open data is disclosed with blockchain technology, then you cannot take it back, right? And then what they have to work on is the level of clearance, the level of access to, and that's the data intermediary that now many countries are talking about, that they need the intermediary. So who is this intermediary for open data? Is this the committee that you mentioned? When we talk about intermediary, this is always a big topic because too many cooks spoil the food. But then when we talk to the AI, we have to include the topic of blockchain technology. So for regulators, instead of using human to do the auditing, then you can use AI as well, because another side of the regulating AI activities and law is what we call XAI, or explainable AI. The explainable AI is the AI who can explain how the algorithm works and is it reasonable. And nowadays, this explainable AI has been improved a lot. Which type of AI is suitable for what type of data work? This is what I like to draw the overview. So hopefully the AI can disrupt something for us, but let's come back to OIC, the Office of the Official Information Commission. You said there are a lot of requests, and Kun Pong Pipat from the matter, you have been mentioned a lot in this conversation. So what do you think the solution would be when it comes to the topic of like mindset, or maybe like it doesn't have to be, not every data is disclosed. So I'll slow down a little bit because the interpreter says my voice echo a little bit. So actually, OIC plays the supporting role, because I think the collaboration with OIC, when there is a complaint, when there is a request, usually the OIC, 90% OIC approve the disclosure. But I think the gridlocks belong to other types of government agencies, sometimes with the army, sometimes with the military related agencies, but not OIC. As Kun Pavana said that the officials in the OIC, you have only 39 staff. And in the past, there has been attempt to transform the agency to be like independent organization, but it has not been approved yet. So we're still using the 1997 Act for Information Act, and it is a very good act for the time being when it was drafted. Do we need to amend it? As the Deputy Director from DGS said, a lot of civil servants, they need support or safety to disclose the data, and all the executive understand the benefits of open data. So I think that we need a law that supports open data. I think the Information Act from 2021, it's not good enough because there is one section that says that the person who requests for the data that is not disclosed, that cannot be disclosed, can be jailed, can be sentenced to jail, and so that's very dangerous. So I think there are many perspectives for each act, but from my perspective as a professional journalist, I think the Information Act from 2021 is a worse version compared to 1997. Another solution is to lead by example, that the executives have to disclose the data and to clarify the spirit that, we want to be transparent, we want to be accountable, but I haven't seen examples from the top. Even though the personal accounts or personal assets, you also don't disclose, and so we don't have to talk about other disclosure of data. And so this is what we see in the culture. A lot of civil servants, they follow the routine, they follow the strategy, but then when it comes to the point they have to make a decision about open data is not very clear for them. We have the draft revision of the Information Act. We have about 4 or 5 drafts of this revision, but I think it's not clear which version should be adopted. You know, from Move Forward Party, from the Office of Permanent Secretary. And a forum like this, I think the topic is how do we use AI to enhance the open data. But then, you know, our debate is not how to use AI. Our debate is still like, okay, do we open or not? And so I think that's a pre-step before we talk about AI. So, you know, so like, I think step 1, open or not. Second step is open what? And third step, open how. And fourth step, how AI. And I think if we can complete each step in that order, you know, our open data will be quite strong. But right now we are stuck at step 1. Do we open or not? So I think that's my last word for the forum here, that I'm sure there's progress. I'm sure there's a lot of development, but there are major concerns that have been exacerbated in the past. You know, and I think like the environment has been more strict. Otherwise, you know, the operation level disclose everything, but the executive, they don't disclose. So maybe you come back to MP, you know, a lot of tension. Maybe the MP is the hope for us because we are the operation and academics. So I actually agree that each government agency has their own limitation and barrier. You know, from DE turn into DGA, you know, to promote the digital transformation, you cannot be under a Ministry of Digital, but now you are under the Office of Permanent Secretary. But still, there is a barrier. I think this is the political view that, like the Bangkok governor, Governor Chadchad, I can see that a lot of agencies under Bangkok, I praise them that, you know, they work more on site for the people, but I think the catalyst to lead to that transformation is the leader of Bangkok who came from the election by the people. And so I think next year when we have the general election, we have the prime minister who is from the people's voices. I think the progress will be better. And also the Information Act, you can call it the public information in the Move Forward Party version, or you can use other version. I think it can be any version of this new Information Act. But what we need to focus on is the details about the format of information. You know, for example, like a lot of public projects information are already disclosed, but it's in the PDF format, right? And people cannot use it further. So this new act has to enforce that the template, the formats of the disclosed information has to be in a usable format. And also the list of the public information, I still insist that this list in the hands of the public sector, everything should be opened by default. We don't need to screen which one can be disclosed, which one cannot, because all of the data in the hands of the public sector comes from tax money. So everything must be able to disclose. So Section 7, Section 9 says that, okay, states already, the data of the project has to be disclosed, but what about the proposals? What about the proposal for the budget, right? Because when we talk about the budget, if we have transparency of budget, some ministry will be in trouble. And I'm not going to go into details for that, but I think this is what we are fighting for, that if we have the leader who reflects the people voices, I think we can advocate more for transparency. And I understand that a lot of agencies, they fight for the same cause, but maybe they don't have the authority and there are other barriers within the government system. And I think one of the keys is to have the government leader from the people.
เลยทั้งในแง่ของแบบลำดับ
So you have informed, you have actually mentioned a great point on. So the MP said that DGA should be, have an oversight on this. So what is your plan? How are you planning to use the AI or technology? Thank you for your question. So the plan, we are happy to be an oversight or the center because the open data in Thailand is actually under our mission, our agency's mission. And I thank all the 374 agencies that disclose information and all other agencies that about 400 to 500 that are in discussions with DGA, all those local agencies. I think with good faith and great intentions, I think it will be in alignment with what is mentioned by Kun Pongpipat and the MP, and also what has mentioned by Director Pawana, that I think legislation is one thing. The mindset of executives is another thing, and it's even more important. And their internal process is important. If executives lead the way, it's just going to expedite all this disclosure process, because ultimately, what is mentioned by Kun Pongpipat, the tools that are needed, DGA, we do have tools that would enable agencies to automate all this information into open data. We are exploring all options available, and in the future, those information at local administration, if we go back statistically, DGA has worked a lot with the local administration. So the local government, digital local government. So we've had, more over 100% information disclosed. Because, mostly it's very centralized, and we try to decentralize this process to those local administration. So we do have the technology. The technology is just waiting for us to exploit them. Some small local agencies only have 3 to 4 computer desktop. So they do have problem, with their budget, securing a budget, and all this procurement they'll have to go through that provincial ICT. Before that small local office would have that computer. You can forget about working from home. So I do sympathize with them. But they do have great intentions, to disclose public information. Many times they participate in our workshop. They're very eager to learn and, very enthusiastic. And we have actually delivered a campaign called Data Camp. By the DGA, we had about 7,000 participants from 77 agencies. And that workshop was proven quite successful, and we will continue to do that. I'd like to extend this invitation to Kun Pongpipat to Anattapong to actually take part in the working committee. And you can see, the enthusiasm. We're not calling it hackathon, but we're actually trying to encourage for them to disclose information and show them, the proper template that and how they can actually disclose this information. We can try to use this process to incubate them before they can come, to that battle. And, these information can actually be disclosed on their websites and shared back as open data. So we're trying to build that talent. I think tools are there. It can be centralized, and we can enable everyone to use this centralized in order to try to take that burden off in terms of the budget that have to secure. So this is what we're trying to do. And what we want to do is develop that standard in information exchange. And many people mentioned this earlier, because the most important thing of open data or closed data is that closed data, there's no standard in connecting or information exchange. So the file formats, will just exist, in the organization without being able to link that. So in order to integrate this, given a big example like a COVID information, we have had the attempt of connecting information from 15 agencies, and it's a collective work, from the MOPH. That's how we were able to present and disclose that COVID information in real time. And when we had that home isolation, community isolation, I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank so many agencies. I think this is what we want to see, right? Ultimately, in the future, when these information can be disclosed and having standardized format, in education, in labor, or in science, in research, and also in public health, and also welfare. So there's so many discipline or range of information, from various agencies. And I'm happy today that all agencies, all government agencies are considering the outcome and the impact that information is going to have. So it's not theoretical anymore, and I'm glad to see that the mindset of the executives, like more than half, from that 7 local administrative agencies, they're actually new generation. They want to work. And because we have worked closely with these local administration agencies and offices, and you can see, we've had a great improvement, and we've had a lot of enthusiasm and interest. Because now, you can see that we are breaking out of the silos, and we are trying to make all that process, have that seamless process. So under the Prime Minister's office, we are able to work with 20 ministries and 300 to 400 departments. So I think this is how we are going. This is the path we are taking under the Director Supot's vision. And it's also important to have that skills building. Thank you very much. I think it's important to decentralize. So and because that will decentralize the budget as well. So Kun Pawana, the new act seems to have a lot of limitations. Where is it right now? Can you share with us a little bit? So we are proposing this to the Secretariat of the Prime Minister's office. We are not sure when it's going to the cabinet. Any objections, we actually did a study and we have consulted with all of them. And we also consulted with the Council of State to validate that draft. And OIC has a team, right, to actually take in the feedback and recommendations, right, in the consultation process. Yes, we cannot skip any process. So one opinion from one agency will be considered. All will be considered. So it's now with the Council of State. So it has been proposed to the Secretariat of the Prime Minister's office. Maybe we have some last word from Ajahn Pumin. We are still speaking in the upstream. Maybe can we touch upon a little bit upon AI? I think AI can take part in this disruption process.
So the AI plays many roles because we have some study, because AI is the most complicated topic for legislation because, it involves algorithms and all kinds of data. And so they use the term legal feasibility. And when you look into the details, with more studies coming up about the process, how algorithms work, how they access the data, how it affects, in addition to the open data from the government, and also the types of data. But actually, this is not just a situation in Thailand, but in the Netherlands, even with their good governance, they don't fully disclose everything. Or in France, there is also lawsuits about lack of complete transparency. But of course, I understand that every country tries to develop at their best. So I think my view is that I'm not worried about the bias that comes with technology. I think bias coming with people. But I think the legislation is a concerning point because legislation is the government instrument. So we have to be careful when we have that law, when we have that act, this output from the government, does that answer our needs? Is this what you want? There are so many laws that in the end, when it comes out, but it doesn't fulfill our needs. And sometimes it looks good on the paper, but when it works in the data world, it will be different. What about the data through the blockchain technology? I don't know much about the data work, but all the data have to be in digital format, right? Or in what format is it suitable? Maybe we have better experts in this room, but I think basically we can say that if we can standardize that every data to be in digital template, right? Then I think that can be a big unlocking step. But it depends on the good governance of our government, whether the government will approve. But the topic of the intermediary, I think this is the central third party that many countries are adopting this approach already. But then if we want to go with that approach, then we have to consider our context. That when many sectors come in to work as an intermediary, it has to be balanced and transparent. So I think today is the International Day for Universal Access Day. So we use a lot the term open data many times, and I think we have heard from the regional showcases. And I think, we can be quite proud for our region that the civil society is quite strong. We have Kun Naritara, the young generation from Thailand. We have our colleagues from Vietnam, from Myanmar. And so I think all of us are at the kickoff of the universal access, which is the basic human rights. And so our discussion is not finished, but we have limited time. But at least, we come together in this forum and exchange some views between the public and civil society. And we have talked about the new technology, the challenges, the learnings. And so I would like to conclude the panel discussion today. And for
Advisor Communication and Information Unit, UNESCO Bangkok. Welcome for the closing remark.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I listened to each of you, and therefore I wanted to show that I listened and actually absorb your views, as I promised I would. It's this strange, unproductive use of my pride, but actually our two moderators did a superlative job, and with their summaries. There was excellent follow-up questions. And I'm really full of admiration, and I hope all of you appreciate that as well. But what I will say instead is that I find it exceedingly beneficial to hear the daily practical challenges and decisions you face. And when UN officials like me casually advocate access to information, open solutions in publishing and science, AI, and so forth, we share the same goals together, but perhaps not the same awareness of the nuances of your work. And perhaps we in the United Nations need to listen better to those details. And that's what I got out of this session. I'm happy that I had I was listening for once much more than I was speaking. I appreciate the patience that's required, overcoming real barriers, frustrations, disappointments, even actual dangers and risks in your work. And I more clearly can see the need to adopt to actual capacities of the duty bearers in fields like digital innovation and transformation, and hopefully building on that capacity. And of course, the importance of civil society and government and a multi-stakeholder approach. The AI challenge, which some of the later speakers addressed, is obviously not a trivial one. AI certainly can and does widen the digital divide in unprecedented ways, in different ways. It manifests in some cases in the gravest erosions in the right to privacy. And AI is the heart of a political and wealth generation model based on a surveillance economy. And so to a degree, perhaps this is why blockchain, which is mentioned, and a decentralized Web 3.0 has an ongoing resonance at this moment, and we will see how that evolves. But the fact remains that perhaps every one of us in this room have lamented about the lack of more data-driven and evidence-based decision-making capacity. And suddenly we have AI, which precisely overlaps with that desirable goal. And we find ourselves lamenting again a future dystopia, disinfodemic. So it's a complicated issue. And in that respect, let's still not lose sight of the potential of digital transformation and e-governance to support SDG achievement. And the key to that path, an absolute necessity, it's becoming clear, it will be to invest in digital skills, media and information literacy, not just technology infrastructure, and to broaden the capacity of duty bearers to address the ethical dimensions when applying AI. And mapping AI, of course, against the human rights supporting frameworks that already exist and are vital. So thank you again to everyone for celebrating this day with us. As we said, this is the first official UN Day took place in 2020, I believe. So every one of you is a pioneer. You're the first generation of people celebrating what I believe, what UNESCO believes is one of the most important days in terms of what access to information means for our collective future. Thank you very much. Thanks so much to everyone, and I wish you wonderful work, and I hope you'll stay in touch with UNESCO. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you from the Advisor Communication and Information Unit UNESCO Bangkok ค่ะแล้วก็ขอปิดงานเพียงเท่านี้นะคะแล้วก็หวังว่ามือสองมือที่อยู่บนหัวเราตรงนี้
So I'd like to officially close the International Day of Universal Access to Information, and I do hope in this background that you see the mechanical hand and the human hand. It's going to touch one day, and it's going to enable everyone to exercise their basic rights and that rights to access to information. Thank you very much.
Recordings.